Okay. I got my Zorro order and I got my bearings and they are oilable. I got a pulley that fits this jack shaft. It's gonna go inside there, but I just have it there for reference, you know. I got my pulley here, and then according to my little drawing here, I was going to run a 20 tooth and a 40 tooth sprocket. Well, I was wrong. As you see back here, I am very limited to what I can and cannot fit. I figure I can probably squeeze about 4.5 inches right there. And so I wanted 4.25 maximum. Well, that 40 tooth sprocket showed up and it was over 6.5 inches diameter. I don't know what I was thinking. Well, I called my new buddy Jimmy up from Zorro. He's in the returns department. He kind of laughed at my situation when I told him I was crazy. And he said, well, you're not that crazy because you called the right person to fix it. Okay. So Jimmy sent me a prepaid shipping label through FedEx. I dropped it off in town, and the parts that don't fit, the sprocket, and the big 10-foot chain, they're already on the way back to Zorro. I'll get my refund. I found 2 pulleys that will fit. I don't know why I didn't find those in the first place. And so my plan is to run V-belt to V-belt instead of V-belt to chain. I also found some automotive tensioners. They're off of a 5.3 Chevy engine, and they are automatic tensioners. So my plan is to wrap, if I've got my pulley and my pulley, my small pulleys, I'm going to have my tensioner wrap a little bit more belt around those pulleys. And those are going to be automatically tensioned. I'll probably tune them a little bit here and there, but that way if I ever have to variate my belt one size or another, I'll be able to just adjust that tensioner and it'll be fine. So now it's time to go find some belts. I've got a little stock of them, and I'm going to start setting up that secondary jack shaft. So I found me this 4L330. I believe that's a 1/2 inch wide, 33 and a 33.0 belt. So I'm guessing it's a 33-inch belt. Anyway, I kind of just winged it and said, well, let's put the belt on just somewhat snug, somewhat loose. I clamped the bearing in place and found out that I can wrap that almost all the way around the belt. Now, obviously, my tensioner is going to be round, so it's not going to be the diameter of my finger, but everything is good and tight right there. So I believe I'm going to transfer my hole by just removing this shaft and then drill a hole, transfer my bolt holes as well, drill those holes, and then figure out how to get it to that side good and square. So now there's all kinds of room where that bearing is for the shaft to come through here. And my plan is to set up a brake on that shaft. I found this old Jackshaft and sprocket in my go-kart supplies, and I think I'm going to take this sprocket off, and I got this little brake caliper. It's just a manual one from Amazon. It's for a go-kart. So it moves around, you apply the brake, it doesn't move around. It also has this floating bracket, and I think that's going to work very well. Now, nothing on that jack shaft can be permanently mounted yet, and I can't do any welding on that mount for sure. It's just tacked still, remember. And the reason is I need to keep my line of sight between this pulley and that jack shaft open. So I can figure out my placement here, but that doesn't mean I know where my pulley will be. It means that it's just going to work right there. That's all. There's even a good chance I'm going to have to run that bearing on the inside of the frame, but that's okay. If everything works out the right way, that's all I'm worried about. All right, well, I've got that bearing bolted in place. I ended up drilling it like a 32nd or a 64th under a 1/2 inch. So that way my 1/2 inch bolts will become basically dowels. There's no room for movement there. And now let's talk transfer punches. I want to make a hole right there. I don't have a punch that big. So I took the biggest transfer punch I have and wrapped some tape around it. Now I can pop that with a hammer and I'm on center. I'm on center enough. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm going to have to make my clearance hole a little bigger than 3/4 of an inch anyway. So maybe I'll just run a 7/8 through there and call it good. Now you can see that little mark I made, and I can enlarge it with an actual center punch now. You don't want to hit your transfer punch too hard. You just want to make a mark, but you don't want to damage your punch. Those need to be sharp for a long, long time, you know. And just like that, we are through. Yeehaw. Now, let's talk tensioners. Tensioner's going to go here, right? And obviously that's not going to wiggle so much. But I am going to pull the engine over. And you can see that this is spinning this way. So this pulley is pulling the belt. All right? I want to have a straight line between this pulley and this pulley on the pull side. I don't want to have to pull through the tensioner. Then there's always going to be tension just bouncing like that. If I do that here with the tensioner, it's going to have a good line of pull, wrap around here, and then the slack will be bouncing here, and that's okay. Well, if this don't teach you to slow down and check your work once in a while, I don't know what will. I used my step bit after I drilled about a 1/2 inch pilot hole, and that's how far it walked. My center line was accurate. So now I'm using my step bit to just chew on that side and make that opening bigger. It's just wild how much it walked. Well, it comes through, but I'm going to do a little bit more clearancing just to verify that it won't rub once I square it up. Okay. Everything is just hunky-dory now. Got the secondary jack shaft installed, and now I'm still waiting on my last set of pulleys that go from this shaft to the transmission. And in order to proceed, I need to know if that pillow block is going to be on the inside of the frame or not. So I'm kind of stuck again, but I can work on a brake caliper mount inside there.